But my topic is contractual pitfalls, right? How to avoid them, and then once we fall into one, how to overcome them, right? And so why do I think that's a key topic? And I come about the contract topic from a different direction. All lawyers want to talk about contracts. They want to teach you how to write the contracts or which boxes to check in. And all of that's important. I like to discuss the big picture with the contract and the objective of the transaction, right? So that we can deal with pitfalls when they happen, and they happen. But more importantly, we can avoid them from the beginning, because in real estate, we find, or I find in my experience, that there are two types of issues that come up in a transaction that disrupt the smoothness of the deal, right? That jeopardize the deal, that make life difficult, that require addendums usually to be dealt with, right? And there are two types of things that happen. The first is things that we could not possibly have foreseen, okay? Things that we could not possibly have known about in advance or really done anything about in advance. Those are not our fault. So I'm a big sports guy. Anybody here like tennis? Tennis, great sport, right? Tennis, a great sport. In tennis, there are two ways in which one player benefits or either gets a point or possession, right, or something. And the first way is a winner, right? They hit a winner. So when Roger Federer serves and it's an ace that the other guy just can't reach it, okay, that's a winner. So the other player didn't necessarily do anything wrong. Roger Federer hit a winner, right? So point for Federer. That's one way. The other way is that Roger Federer hits the ball right to the guy, and it's so hard that when the guy hits it back, he puts it in the net. Right? That's an unforced error. Roger Federer is going to get a point, but it's not because he did anything. It's because that guy failed to hit the ball back over. Right? These types of unforced errors are the ones that we want to avoid in real estate. And realtors, unfortunately, and attorneys and title agents, we make these unforced errors all the time. And so they make life harder. And we also forget, when issues come up, we forget that everyone in a transaction is working towards the same goal. Right? So maybe it's because many real estate lawyers have never done litigation, and I've had the displeasure of doing a lot of litigation. So I understand the dynamic of being in a situation where everything that I want is the express opposite of what the other side wants. Okay, so in litigation, what I want done is the opposite of what the other guy wants. In a transaction, what I want done is the same thing that the other side wants done. We want to close, right? So the buyer wants to buy, the seller wants to sell. So this is a non-adversarial setting, and yet we routinely make the transaction adversarial because we either forget or are unable to avoid a pitfall, or once a pitfall comes up, we get into combat mode. Right, so the purpose of this presentation is to teach you how to avoid those problems, okay? And when you have the problem, hopefully to give you a little bit of a better method to kind of deal with the problem so that the objective is achieved, closing, right? Unlike the litigation business, right, or unlike most other forms of work, the more we work in our business, and I'm a closing lawyer primarily, I do lots of transactions, right? And realtors, we're in the same boat. We're in the boat of people who work for free and in advance, right? We're in the group of people who work hoping something else will happen, right? When the deal dies, nobody reimburses you like the cookie money, right? So whatever money you spent baking cookies or flyers for that property, all the showings that you went to, nobody reimburses you for that. So like the deal cancels, you don't remit an invoice. Hey, Mr. Seller, you're backing out, no problem. Or, Mr. Buyer, you're backing out, you didn't like the inspection, no big deal. Hey, go ahead and send me a check for $750. That should cover, my babysitting you, your wife, your mother-in-law. She was awesome. At the 4 showings, right, that we took you to, no problem. Your kid puked in my car, no big deal. All these things, just $750, take my time, no big deal. We'll find you in the next one. No, when the deal dies, we don't get paid. Same thing in my office. Carlos Gutierrez, dear friend of mine, he'll send me a real estate file. His files rarely cancel, but he's here, so I'll use him as an example. Let's say he sends me a deal, we order title, we order lien search, right? These are invoices that I incur. And then all of a sudden, the deal dies for whatever reason, and the release for the deposit comes in 4 nanoseconds, right? Nobody asking me, hey, Rich, do you have any costs in this file, right? Because I'm eating the costs, so deal cancels, I'm eating it, right? So we work in advance with the hopes that something will happen. And what's worse, that the longer that the deal takes to close, we don't make more money. Isn't that incredible? We make the same amount irrespective of how long the deal lasts. When I'm on a litigation file, I'll never forget, I was a brand new lawyer. I go to what's called summary judgment. It's like a knockout blow hearing, right? I'm defending a case. I walk in, first year lawyer, we win. Okay, justice, I'm thinking. I go back to my office. I see the managing partners, a guy named Richard Cole. He's been doing it for 1,000 years. I'm like, Mr. Cole, I got great news. I just won summary judgment in the Kemper case. And he looks at me and he says, what's the good news? Are they going to appeal? And I was like, we won. So I'm saying the good news is we won and we won the case. And he's like, yeah, but now the file's closed and so no more billing. And I was like, that's why he was like, are they going to appeal? Because if they appeal, the file lives on, right? And so I say this half in jest, but the theme is correct. When you're billing time, right, the more work you do, the more money you make. Now, in our case, when you're a realtor and you get, let's say you have the whole listing, 6%, okay, you're the transaction broker. At 6%, it's going to be 6% of the purchase price, whether the deal closes in 30 days or 330 days. So, $4,000, $6,000, $10,000 commission within 30 days, that's a nice deal. With that same $6,000 commission after the deal has lasted 180 days and it's, you've gone like this, the emotion all up and down, you've talked to the buyer or seller 8,000 times, all of a sudden the margin is not as good. Okay, so that's why what I'm talking to you about is how do we make sure that we don't add to the time required to close a file, right? We may not be able to make it close on time. Contracts routinely get extended, but what do we want to make sure not to do? That we don't add to the delay, okay? And so the first way we do that, I'm going to give you 2 simple rules, okay? The first rule is be prepared. You got to be prepared. And what do I mean by be prepared? So show of hands. How many people in here have been an agent less than 1 year? Less than 1 year, new agents. Not that many. I love that. You want to know why? This is a room of people, and I'm not going to pick on you, but you're close. I'm just teasing. You're close. You're in proximity. So I teach a class once a month to agents, brand new agents at this one brokerage, that their philosophy is we want 1 million agents so that if 1% of them close, great. And then there's the brokerages that have a philosophy of I'm going to have 20 agents, they all have to be machines. Okay, so this is, I want to be everywhere. I want to have a branch everywhere. I want to be seen everywhere. Brokerage mentality. So they specialize in recruiting brand new agents. Right, so these brand new agents come in and I give them this class, and the first question I say to them is, I'm like, all right, and I hold up the form, the as-is, FAR 5 form, the current form, and I'm like, all right, here's the typical contract we use. Show of hands, be honest. How many people have read this piece of paper end to end? At least one time, like you've read the whole contract, one time. Right, and what's funny is, and here's the thing, and most often, I preface these questions with, how many of you are full-time realtors? Okay, so let's say I have 10 people in the room there, right? So if you're a full-time realtor, show of hands. Right. Okay, in here, almost everybody. In those rooms, you get a lot of that too. You'll see like 6 of 10 new agents will say, I'm going to do this full-time. And then I'll say, all right, so out of you 6 full-timers, how many of you have read the as-is contract one end to the other? And they will 2 hands will go up. Okay, and of those 2, they've read it maybe 1 time. Okay, and I say, all right, no problem. So this is the operative document that you present to people. You're trying to inspire confidence in people who do not buy and sell. You are in the business of buying and selling real estate. You're going to deal with people who buy and sell maybe once or twice in their entire lives. Okay? And you have not read the let's pray that they don't ask you. right? Because if I'm a buyer and you're my agent, you present the offer to me, what's the reality? I'm not going to read it. I mean, we just agreed you guys don't read it. So I'm certainly not going to read it. It's stereo instructions to me. I'm not in this business. So if the buyer says to you, have you read this? Your relationship is going to start off on what we call the wrong foot, because you're either going to lie and say, of course I've read it. Right? So you're starting the relationship off with a lie, right? Violation of cardinal rule number 1. Or you're going to be honest, and then you might lose the client. No, I haven't read it. So it's like, you're asking me to sign it, but you have, how do we know what it says? It's like, I don't know, we know what it says. With these little boxes you check, it's just, trust me. Right? And it's like, trust you? I'm buying a house. I mean, I don't think so. So we're very lucky that people don't engage in these simple questions at the beginning of the relationship. And that's why if you watch some lawyer advertising, you'll see some lawyers are like, don't be afraid to ask the lawyer you're interviewing how many cases they've tried. You know, it's like, because people who try cases, they want to make it clear that not everybody tries cases, that in fact very few lawyers try cases. And so if you have a case that has to go to trial, don't hire a guy that has the prettiest ad, hire the guy that goes to trial. Right? And so same principle here. So this is why I say you got to be prepared. So by reading the contract, you can be prepared. And how do other members of our profession know when they're dealing with agents that are not prepared? I'll give you an example. When the question to me comes like this, hey Rich, I'm representing a seller on this deal. The seller wants to know what their closing costs are going to be. And I say, right, I'm the title company, right? And I'm like, yeah. And here's the thing. The question that they're asking me is not how much, it's what are the closing costs? What are they? So there's two ways to look at closing costs, right? There are categories of costs that are typically attributed to one side or the other, right? And then there is the amount of those costs when applicable. That's the breakdown for closing costs. So we can do anything by agreement. That's the beauty of a deal. This nice lady and I can agree that I'm going to buy her house and I'm going to pay all her closing costs. Then it doesn't matter what the as-is says, because we're going to make a provision for buyer paying all closing costs. But if we do nothing, much like a cell phone, who has an iPhone? Okay, when you take the iPhone out of the box and you turn it on, it's got a picture on it already, right? It's got like a background, you know, the earth or a waterfall, something like that. What do we call that setting, that photo? The default. It's the default setting. Well, much like an iPhone, the FAR 5 has defaults. They're all over the place, right? On page 1, if the deposit's going to be made after acceptance of the offer, if you leave it blank, it's 3 days. The inspection, if you leave it blank, it's 15 days. And the financing continues. There's a number of defaults in there. There is a whole default section for closing costs, right? It's in section 9. So if you are an agent and you have read the contract, you don't have to be a lawyer. All of a sudden, you're that much more prepared and advised to talk to a seller. So when a seller says to you, hey, what are my closing costs? You're going to say, well, the exact number is going to depend on the purchase price. But as a seller, you typically pay documentary stamp taxes on the deed, surtax, if applicable, right? If it's vacant land, you're going to pay the estoppel fee, you're going to pay the lien search fee, and we can find that in section 9. Right, of the contract. You don't have to be a lawyer to know that. You just have to be familiar with, I don't know, the 17 sections of the real estate contract. I mean, how many songs do you have known by memory? Like the song comes on and you know every verse by heart and the chorus. You can't memorize the 17 sections? I mean, come on, guys, this is what we do for a living. We got to be prepared. Plus, it sounds sexy. All of a sudden, that seller's like, wow, section 9. This person's talking about sections. These people know what they're talking about, right? So you want to be prepared. So now it's a better question. Now when you're coming to the title, you're never going to ask your escrow or your title agent, what are the seller's closing costs? You're going to ask them, how much are the seller's costs based on this purchase price? And you know that you have to give me the number. Okay, so all you have to do is know where to find this in the contract. And like that, there are a number of sections. So a common pitfall that I see, and I'm the ultimate buyer. I love to buy stuff. My wife is even worse. My wife's like a buying ninja. It's amazing. Personal letters from Jeff Bezos. Hi, Cindy, thank you. No, I'm kidding. But she's like, another great month. Thank you. No. So when I walk into a place to buy something, I want to feel romanced. Okay, I want to feel like the seller knows what they're talking about. I want to feel like I'm going to learn something. So the other day I walked into like a Best Buy, and there's a nice, the coolest new TV there, and I'm looking at it, and this kid walks up, and he's young, so I'm appreciative that he's like, hey sir, how are you, sir? Can I help you with something, sir? And I'm like, I'm just looking for some 4K TVs. And he's like, 4K? What do you want to pay 4K for a TV for, man? I got them for $8.99, $9.99, $10.99. I mean, I got them up to 86 inches for $179.99. And he's like showing me this TV, and I'm like, no. I mean 4K, resolution, like the one where you can see the guy's pimples, and it's, it's like the real close, that the resolution. And he's like, oh, yeah, automatically I know I'm not buying a TV from that guy, right? Because I know more about TVs than that guy. He's the TV salesman. I know more about TVs than that guy. That's not going to work. Okay, so it's the same thing in real estate. So when you get a listing, how do we make sure we're prepared? First is we can be prepared with the fundamentals. Okay, the fundamentals. So reviewing the forms that we use every day. So now, if you were sitting in this chair and you're like, I've read the As Is, Rich, please, okay? Talk about this at the rookie class. And it's like, all right, but have you read it like often? Can you tell me the differences between the last one? I mean, I know that this nice, she's going to come up, she's going to highlight the differences, and you guys are the choir, right? You're here at the seminar and all that, but think about it. You think Derek Jeter, or Alex Rodriguez, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, you think these guys are good at what they do? Right, and do you know how much they practice? Do you know how many free throws LeBron James practices? That's like our equivalent of reading the As Is. Okay, so if you're not reading the As Is as frequently as LeBron James is shooting free throws, you're never going to be the LeBron James of realtors. Fair? Right? And don't we all want to be like the Jills or, Teresita Shelton or these people, right, that we hear about, what's his name, Riley Smith, right? These guys, the legends of real estate, right? These guys, they put in the time. It's not a coincidence. So you need to be prepared with the fundamentals. So just like professional athletes practice the fundamentals, they hit fungo until they're blue in the face, just fielding ground balls all day, right? I mean, they've done it for 1,000 years. Why do they got to keep doing it, right? They're pros. They get paid millions of dollars and they practice more than we do. Okay? So you got to be prepared. So there's being prepared about the fundamentals of our game, of our profession, and then there's being prepared about the specifics of the products that we have. Right? This happens a lot with marginal agents, and I know that there are none in this room, right? But what did the National Association of Realtors say like 2 years ago? The biggest threat to our industry was the marginal agent, the part-time agent, the uninformed agent. So let me tell you a horror story that I had. So there's this little condo unit in Miami. It was at the Costa del Mar Condo Association. I'm making that name up, but it's real close. It's in a part of town where there's no mar. In case you don't know, the mar is the ocean, and there's no mar. There were like a few sparkling man-made lakes, whatever, okay? So, and the seller is this little old Cuban lady, okay? I'm Cuban, so I can say this. And so her name, she insisted on using all of her names. And if anybody knows any old Cuban ladies, they have a lot of names. So literally, her name was like Eloína María de Los Ángeles Rodríguez Crespo Listed. Okay? And she's one of these ladies that, by the way, every time she signs, she rocks the whole thing. Like the whole thing, like some people are, all right, Eloína. No. She was like, So her husband passes away, and she's listing this condo. She's had it for 1,000 years since they got here from Cuba. Okay, and they had the same sofa with the same plastic cover. I mean, everything was the same. In the backyard, in the little concrete backyard, which is typical of this neighborhood, they had the handmade shed, tool and hen shed that Angel himself, the husband, built with his own bare hands, which she's showing the agent like a source of pride. And the agent, I mean, if I were the agent, I'd be thinking, that's a code violation. This is a disaster. You know what this is? She's like, esto lo armó Angelito. It's like, no, that is a problem. That is a discount. That's what that is. So it's like, what do you want to do? You're going to break her heart? You're going to tell her, hey, we're going to have to tear this shit down? I mean, no, right? I mean, you're not going to say that. So you already know what you're dealing with, right, when you get this listing. So the other problem is that Eloína wants 250 grand for this unit, and I gotta tell you, it's just not worth 250 grand, like just under no circumstance. Okay, so the listing went to this person. She was a brand new agent. I still work with her to this day. I still make fun of her about this. Okay, she's the sweetest lady in the world, and she's leaving the house. And you know, I joke about it because when she sends me the signed like listing agreement, I was like, man, she signed all her names. Like, were you afraid that she might die like halfway through it? Because I mean, it's a lot, and the lady was old, you know. And so she's like, yeah. And I'm like, wait till we got to take an offer over there. I was like, tell her to abbreviate. So sure enough, she gets a call. A guy is gonna buy it. A first-time buyer. Guy's name is Rudy. I'll never forget, Rudy. Okay, this is probably 2011, like when we were doing our first deal again. Remember, like the market crashed and nobody did a deal for like 17 years. Okay, so like in 2011. Like we were dusting off like the files, you know, of how to close a file. So we get this contract, and I'm sorry, Rudy says, oh, I want to see the house, and I joke with the agent because she was one of these trainees, and so she wanted my input every step of the way, right? So she's like, oh, I got a showing I'm going to take. It's a guy named Rudy. And so I joke with her, and when she calls me after, I'm like, was the wife there? I said, was he married? She says, yes. I go, was the wife there? She says, no. I go, you didn't sell anything today. Right? Because obviously the wife's got to approve, and she's like, no, but she says she come back Saturday and this and that. And of course they bring the mother-in-law. That's why I bring the mother-in-law joke. Sure enough, these people come to a deal, and what are the auspices of the deal? How do they get Eloína off of the $250,000? Well, first, of course, Cuban grandmother detail. Eloína's son, Alejandro, is a lawyer in California, and not just any lawyer, he's the best lawyer. I mean, she bores the tears out of the neighbors. So Alejandro's made law review. He's got a big case. He's arguing. He's making an argument, you know, and it's like the pride of Eloína, and of course the grandchildren. So her objective is to get to California in time for her birthday, which was like, you know, 33 days away. Okay, and so Rudy comes with a desktop approval. Woof! Oh, you know that. Now we're good. You know, this guy can close in 30 days. We've all heard that story before. So sure enough, desktop approval, but only for 200. Only for 200. So of course they go, and the agent, and I tell the agent how to beat the lady up to take the 200. Okay, listen, even if you had a guy that showed up at 250 and if it doesn't appraise, they're not going to get the loan. Okay, and I know what it's worth to you, but you got to think about what it's worth to some dry bank that wants to protect its money. Okay, and so what's really important is that we identify a buyer that you can pass this house on to, that you know is going to take care of it. It's going to be fantastic. And as luck would have it, Rudy's mother-in-law and Eloína were from the same town in Cuba, Placetas Las Villas, Cuba, capital del universo. Okay? Capital of the universe, Placetas, Cuba. I don't know if you guys haven't heard, now you know. Okay? Capital of the universe. So they hit it off, and so under this guise of, and because he's got a desktop approval, they can close in 30 days. You're going to spend your birthday in California. Right? You're going to cut cake in San Bernardino. Okay? Surrounded by grandchildren and all this other good stuff. So of course, she signs all 17 names on the contract. Deal's good, ready to go. Lady's so happy. She walks into my office proud as a peacock. Mira, the offer, the check, everything was great. And I'm like, great. What do all condo buyers need? What do all condo buyers need to close? I'm hearing it. Association approves a room full of informed people. Association approval. Now, do we have any single people here? Single people. Okay, single people. Facts for single people to help knock them dead. Other single people like people with information. They like facts. So what is the one exception to the condo approval thing? Well, there's two, right? The association doesn't require approval. That's rare. What's the one true exception to the buyer needing approval?
First right of refusal.
A form of that, yes, but when the seller is a developer. Right? New construction. When the seller's a developer, there's never condo approval for buyers. What? Right. So that's the answer. So in this case, we know we need condo approval because the seller is Eloína. Eloína is the seller. Now, what we don't know at this point is that the association in this small little community doesn't have a property manager and only meets like once every 45 days. And guess what? With this lady's luck, the meeting had been like 3 days prior. So guess what? It seems on day one, we just signed the contract, that we're not going to have an approval in time. And now we have violated unviolable rule number 1, which is never make promises you can't keep. In this business, you never make promises you can't keep. And in this case, you put your client in a situation where you promise a closing and he can't close. Unless you change the way things are done, right, by getting this association to do something they don't ordinarily do, you're not going to be able to close because you weren't prepared. Because when you get a condo listing, ladies and gentlemen, the first thing you should do is educate yourself on the condominium. What's the application process like? How long do the approvals take? Where do I get the forms? Right? So that when you're presenting offers to buyers, or when offers are coming with buyers are coming with other agents, you're giving the agent, hey, here's the condo approval. My buyer may not make an offer. I don't care. If they do, you're going to have it already. Okay, so the prepared agent knows what he's selling. So goodness of your heart, you know, you might have wanted to close. You just conned the lady out of the $250 for that, even though she can't get it. That's not what she's going to think. So now, that's the pitfall. Now you got to deal with this problem, right? And so, as we close on this, dealing with this problem, guys, involves remembering that the objective for both sides is the same. So, what is the benefit to Eloina of what does the buyer need? He needs an extension. And what is the benefit to Eloina of granting the extension when we now know she's not going to make it to California for her birthday? Well, no. The benefit is that she doesn't have to start over and wait even longer. And we have someone else to blame, the association. So I told the agent, here's the discussion. You're going to go to this lady, you're going to say, Eloina, I got good news and I got bad news. We got a guy who applied on time, he applied for the loan, he applied for the approval, he's paid the money, he's done everything. But because your association meets only once every 45 days, and by the way, I don't know how good association business gets done that way. Okay? Because of that, we're not going to get the approval in time. Oh my God, what does that mean? Well, what it means is if we don't work with this person, we're going to have to start over. We're going to have to start all over. We're going to have to go back to market. We're going to have to pray to find another buyer who's going to come back here and that you're going to like them as much and that they're willing to offer and that they're going to be approved. So you know what? We're looking at a 20-day delay. It's probably better for us to go ahead and give it to him. Okay? Because he's invested in this deal. You're invested in this deal. I'm invested in this deal. And the sooner we can close, the better. And right now, this is the best we can do. Okay? And that's how we roll with the problem. So I'm out of time. I'll give you quickly my email. It's Barbara, B-A-R-B-A-R-A, at cgtitle.com. And yes, I had a basket, I had mugs and goodies, and my 2-year-old daughter literally projectile vomited as we were leaving the house. It was fantastic. It was pouring down rain, and I had the box, and then on the 7 Mile Bridge, was like, my wife's like, do you have the mugs? I'm like, I don't have them. I'm like, don't mention them, but don't say anything to me ever. Anyway, thank you so much for your time. I'm happy to help, all right?